All right, let's mute you guys, except for Joe, and you're welcome to start playing, Joe. I'll let people in.
Early in the morning when it looked like rain, round the bend came a passenger train. On the train is Casey Jones, a good old rounder, but he's dead and gone, he's dead and gone. He's dead and gone. He's a good old rounder, but he's dead and gone. Casey said just before he died, just two trains that he had not tried. The boys said, Casey, what can they be? He said, the Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe, the Santa Fe, the Santa Fe, the Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe. A small but committed crowd talking about ballads in history. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hey, thank you, Joe. Thanks for that super sweet cup of tea there.
Just a little bit of music as folks come in. I don't know what it's like where y'all are, but I've got a really good thunderstorm coming in. So, T. Claw, how much do you know about ballads as history in case I go away?
Oh, I will fake it till I make it.
All right, that's
And I have the links,
that's
so
why we like it.
we'll make up the rest of this story. Uh,
Cool. We've got some
um,
folks. I think we've got some folks entering.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be making some announcements here, so if one of you other co-hosts can let folks in as
I
they
just I
queue
just
up.
did that. Yeah.
Welcome to Augusta 2020. For those of you who are new, my name is T Claw. I'm your Augusta Zoom host for this session. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Our programming is made possible with generous support from the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History, the West Virginia Humanities Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, Davis and Elkins College, and all of you contributors out there, especially those Mug Club people. Uh, Participants, as you come in, you're muted. Share your questions and comments and hellos and where you're coming in from in the chat feed. And Ira and Emily and I will help uh, forward things along to Joe as he's working. This class is being recorded and archived through the end of September at augustaartsandculture.org. I included the link if you want to find this later. And without further ado, I give you Joe.
Well, hey. Um, I was really interested to be asked to do this. I grew up in a singing family. I grew up in a family in the Ozarks where it was sort of a rite of passage to learn the songs from my family, sort of knee to knee, or sitting in the back seat of the car, or wherever my dad or his brothers and sisters would be singing. And so when we talk about ballads, I mean we could talk about Frank Sinatra singing a ballad, but it's not quite that. Although with just like any form of music, when you look at what a ballad is, it's a folk song that tells a story, or it's a song that tells a story. And so it can be history, which is more our focus today, but it can be folk tales, it can be legends, it can be fairy tales, it can be tales of outlaws and bad men and desperados and the Bonnie and Clyde types. So they're written to be sung, and they often contain a moral. And so I wanted to start off with a little bit of something from my family. It's my family's version of Barbary Allen, and there I look and look for other versions that are similar to this, and this is the only. This version of Barbary Allen has just about the strangest and most beautiful little thing about Sweet William dying on Friday, Barbary dying on Saturday, and her mother dying for the love of them both on Easter Sunday. And the reason I wanted to start with this is because my daughter Virginia, our youngest girl, she's the one that she really gets it. And in this song, I love how Virginia, when she really gets onto a point, she'll go, "Okay, Dad," and she locks in, and she said, "So, Dad." When Sweet William dies, and they bury him in a grave that's long and narrer. It's narrer, isn't it, Dad? Yes, honey. And when she asks her mother to make her bed, she wants her mother to make her bed long and narrer, right, Dad? And when the rose grows out of his grave and the briar grows out of her grave, then they rop, don't they, Dad? Yes, honey. And when I heard Virginia say that, for one, I got getting a little carried away now because it means that she gets it. So when we talk about ballads as history, it's a historical event often, but in my case, it's also my family's history, and it's a way for me to access wherever I am in this world. I can have my family wrapped around me, and these days I hear my Father's voice when I sing, which is a very cool thing. So I'm going to sing a little bit of Barbary Allen for you. 'Twas in the merry month of May, when green buds all were swelling, Sweet William on his deathbed lay, for the love of Barbary Allen. He sent his servant to the town, to the place where she was dwelling, said, "You must come to my master dear, if your name be Barbary Allen." So slowly, slowly she drew up, and slowly she drew nigh him, and the only words to him did say, "Young man, you're surely dying." He said, "It's true, I'm a poor sick man, and death is in my dwelling, but none the better will I ever be, if I don't get Barbary Allen." She said, "It's true, you're a poor sick man. Death is in your dwelling, but none the better will you ever be, for you won't have Barbary Allen." He turned his poor face to the wall and busted out crying, cruel maid, you're the death of me. You've killed me, Barbary Allen." She had not gone but a mile from town, when she heard the death bell tolling, and every time to her did say, "Hard-hearted Barbary Allen." "Mother, mother, make my bed, make it long and narrer. Sweet William died for me today, I'll die for him tomorrow. And Father, Father, dig my grave, dig it both long and narrer. Sweet William died for the love of me, I'll die for him in sorrow." Sweet William died on a Friday night, and Barbary died on Saturday. Her mother died for the love of them both, she died on Easter Sunday. They buried them all in the old churchyard, in graves both long and narrer. and out of his grew a milk-white rose, and out of hers a briar. And they clumb and they clumb, they clumb and they clumb, till they couldn't climb any higher. And there they wrapped in a true love knot, and the rose wrapped round the briar. There you go.
Oh wow! Thanks,
Ah,
Joe.
ah.
The chat room is speechless.
I'll tell you, when we talk about the ballad form, um, you know, some folks say, well, why do we sing ballads today? What makes ballads so immediate even today? And I always think about what Harry Truman said, which is there is nothing new in the world except the history you do not know. You know, he was right. There's really no new feeling or motivation that humans can have. So when we talk about the collection of these ballads, you know, one of the things that I'm glad that we have in this world is folks who take the time to go record, to try to catalog, to try and make these things make sense in a lot of ways. And of course, the James Child collected the Child ballads, and so Barbary Allen is Child Ballad number 1, I believe. Let's hear a little bit of Child Ballad number 77, which is Sweet William's Ghost. It's from my friend Lisa Null. And before we get started, T. Claw, I'll just let folks know that this ties in a lot with the old notions of England and Scotland and going off to Scotland and coming home to England. But in this instance, Lady Margaret is also met by the baleful ghost of Sweet William. So there's something that if Ira found this, it would be. Am I frozen? No. Things I've learned from the British ballads. That would be a cool thing to to find online, because they're funny, but they're really also true.
Lady Margaret was sitting in her own lone home, built of lime and stone. Lady Margaret was sitting in her own lone home when she heard a dead man's moan. Oh, is it my father, Lord Thomas, she said, or is it my brother John, or is it my true love, sweet William, from Scotland home has come? 'Tis not your father, Lord Thomas, he said, or is it your brother John, but it is your true love, sweet William, from Scotland home has come. Did you bring to me any diamonds or pearls? Did you bring to me any ring? Did you bring to me any token at all that a
I wanted to get to the place there, and we can we'll have links to all of these available. We'll try and paste them into the chat before we go. But I wanted to get to the place where she went over the hills and valleys that night in a dead man's company. So there, cue the supernatural right away. You know, the ballads that we are going to be looking at today. You know, in England and Scotland and the British Isles, they were often composed by traveling minstrels who were commenting on the day, commenting on things that happened historically, or also legends, and also consider it the first, maybe one of the first PR firms for a nobleman who would have somebody write something very favorable, and then later they would be printed on sheets of paper and they were broad, so that's where we have the term broadsides. Then, you know, just like everything else, things change, and folks came to America. And when we got to America, people would go and scatter all around the states, and from the middle of the country to lots of folks in West Virginia. I'd like to talk about West Virginia for a second, and the fact that when you have loggers, our friend Craig Johnson, the late Craig Johnson, went and visited a fellow who grew up in West Virginia, but had moved to Galax, Virginia, and Craig said, he noticed a fiddle on the man's wall, and he said, "Do you play?" And the old man held up his left hand, and he didn't have any fingers on his left hand, and he said, "Not anymore." He said, "Buddy," and don't you love it when they call you buddy? He said, "Buddy, go home and write me a sad song." And Craig wrote an amazing song that I think sits so squarely in the ballad tradition that I wanted to share it with you. And it's called Piney Mountain, or Piney. I used to call it Piney Mountains because I was thinking about all of the mountains. But and this is a performance that I did. If you can find it, it's at the bottom of it's right by the Monroe's John Henry T. Claw. But let's listen to Craig's Piney Mountain.
When the skidder starts to buck and the gears come down, Buddy sing a sad old song. It makes God's own thunder on the new cut ground. Lord, and my time ain't long. We were fighting over nothing and drinking too hard. Woman, don't you weep for me. Riding up to camp on a flat wheel car. You damned old Piney Mountains. I was 30 years hanging on the old chain brake. Buddy sing a sad old song. I got laid off and paid off in 58. Lord, and my time ain't long. The skidders got sold to the scrap iron yard. Woman, don't you weep for me. So I moved down in Virginia when the times got hard. You damned old Piney Mountains. I lost my fingers to a steel bandsaw. Buddy sing a sad old song. Now my fiddle just hangs untuned on the wall. Lord, and my time ain't long, and it's all grown up on the logging road. Woman, don't you weep for me, and the wildflowers bloom where the big shades blow. You damned old Piney Mountains, there's nothing left for me but to drink and smoke. Buddy sing a sad old song. My hands can't fiddle and my heart's been broke. Lord, and my time ain't long.
Hey, Flora. Hey, Flora. I really I want to send a shout out to Craig Johnson in heaven, because man, what a great friend he was, and what a peerless musician he was. So we make it over to the States, and my family went through the Cumberland Gap out to Arkansas and to Missouri, and so we'll go out there in a second. But any questions before we go on? And there's few enough of us that if you want to open up and unmute T-Claw, if we can do that, then I'll entertain a question before we go to Arkansas. Always a good idea to get all the questions answered before you go to Arkansas.
Well, I allowed people to unmute themselves, but no one stepped up. So.
All right. Well, one of the things about me is that I can talk all day long. Just ask my wife. So I'll keep on talking. Ballads are often based on real events, and this one was recorded by Max Hunter, and his subject was Pearl Brewer of Pocahontas, Arkansas. And we have to give a shout out to the people who were country when country wasn't cool. The people who would drive around with a 40 and 50-pound wire recorder in the back of their car and go record these songs just because they loved them and they knew they had to be preserved. My grandfather Newberry was a hunting and fishing companion of Vance Randolph, the great Ozark folk song collector. Matter of fact, when I was a little boy, my dad was one of those dads who would say, "Come on, son, get in the car," and I'd go do it. And we were driving. We drove down into Arkansas, and I said, "Dad, where are we going?" He said, "We're going to go meet a great man, son." And we went to a nursing home, and sitting in a wheelchair in the day room was Vance Randolph, because my dad, and it was so sweet and a little sad, but Mr. Randolph thought that my dad was my grandfather. And so, Mr. Randolph said, "Oh, Sterling, do you remember when we were down on the White River?" And, and my dad, to his credit, he said, "Those were good days, weren't they, Mr. Randolph?" So anyway, after Vance Randolph came Max Hunter, who was actually my dad's age and who was in my dad's high school class. Max Hunter was a traveling salesman. And as he traveled, he would go around and he would record Ozark singers singing play party songs and funny songs, songs of the day, topical songs, country songs, but also ballads. And this ballad, I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, it started as a real thing. A child was lost. It's called Lost Babe. And Val Mandel, I don't know if you've ever heard. Oh yeah, you might have to go back to the beginning, T-Claw, because I think it might have started. It's in process, so you might want to click back to the head.
Are we looking for a video or just
No, no, it's just a sound file.
Come all you young and tender ladies, help me find my poor lost baby, poor little lost baby, poor little lost. Don't you hear the rain a-falling, my babe's out in the wilderness squalling, poor lost baby, poor little lost. Don't you hear the wolves a-howling, my babe's out in the wilderness prowling, poor lost baby, poor little lost. How can you sit at the table of cards poor little love.
I mean, really, that makes my heart swell. And to hear that voice, that accent, it's just like going home. And Val and I had a little in the chat about Aunt Ollie Gilbert. And I loved Ollie Gilbert. When she was an old lady, I got the chance to spend time with her down in Arkansas. And the thing is that you wouldn't know from the suave, confident man of today that I am. You wouldn't know that I used to blush so hard. And Ollie Gilbert loved the fact that she could make me blush, and so she would back me up into a corner at a party and tell me the dirtiest jokes. And one after the other, and I would be red, and it would go all the way up. And I had hair back then, and even the part in my hair was red. Ollie also, she wrote her song titles down on a strip of linen that was about that wide. It was just about the same size as width as a roll of toilet paper, and she would roll it up, and it looked for all the world like a big roll of toilet paper, and she'd say, "What do you want to hear?" And she'd roll it out across the floor, and you'd pick a song. I loved Ollie as well. Well, here we are. My family went through the Cumberland Gap out to Arkansas and Missouri. I'm the first one that came back. My family left in 1838, and I came back to North Carolina in 1982. And so North Carolina, land of great music. Maybe that ought to be on the license plate. Land of great music. Well, actually, that'd be West Virginia. I don't know, but it'd be Missouri. Anyway, another answer to why ballads are important. Why are ballads important? It's really a ballad is what jump-started in many ways the folk revival of the '60s, and it was from the song Tom Dooley by the Kingston Trio. So T-Claw, we've got a couple of versions of Tom Dooley. First one, if you could do the Tom Dooley from Frank Prophet. We won't do the whole thing, but I just want to give a sense of what the Kingston Trio was listening to. So if you could get a little Frank Prophet, that would be great.
Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Larry Foster, poor boy, you're bound to die. You met her on the mountain, there you took her life. Met her on the hillside, you stopped her with a knife. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, oh hang your head and cry. Kill little Larry Foster, poor boy, you.
So Emily just chatted that his voice kills her too. I mean, it's such a great voice. And I never got the chance to meet Mr. Prophet. I met Frank Prophet Jr., and he had the same real laconic, real low-key guy, and just full of music. T-Claw, if we could play a little bit of the Kingston Trio's version, and before you get started, this actually, it was very accessible to non-Southern ears. And if you could go all the way back to the beginning of the cut, because the whole thing, from the introduction of the host of the show to the way that the Kingston Trio starts, it's really cool.
Men chipped in to make their own record of a song called Tom Dooley. And in a very few short weeks, it has zoomed up the popularity polls to the #1 spot. And you can hear it in this great new album of theirs. And here they are, ladies and gentlemen, in person, to do it for us now, the sensational Kingston Trio.
Thank you.
have been many songs written about the eternal triangle. This next one tells the true story of a Mr. Grayson, a beautiful woman, and a condemned man named Tom Dooley. When the sun rises tomorrow, Tom Dooley must hang. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley, hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley, oh boy, you're bound to die. I met her on the mountain, where I took her life. Met her on the mountain, stabbed her with my knife. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley, hang down your head and cry. Oh boy, oh boy, hang down your head, Tom Dooley, oh boy, you're bound to die.
I'll tell you what, you know, it might not be everybody's taste, but what they did when they put that out in front of people, it blew people's minds. That because I think one of the things about ballads certainly is people are they're looking for the real. They're looking for something authentic, and for a lot of people, that was the first blush of anything non-urban that they heard. And you listen to the way that the Kingston Trio approached it. It's like when I teach with Val Mindell, we talk about saying your words exactly the same, about breathing the same, about everything goes to serve the song. And so in that sense, it's a real success. Now, one of the reasons why I chose 3 different versions is because, you know, there are a ton of great versions of this. Actually, his last name was not Dooley, it was Dula, D-U-L-A. So when you go to the when you sing Tom Dooley, you're really singing Tom Dula. And my favorite version these days comes from the songbird of the South, the songbird of the Appalachians, Laura Businger. And she got together with the Kruger brothers, and she did a version of Tom Dula that just knocks my hat in the creek.
Hang your head, Tom Dula, hang your head and cry. Kill little Laura Foster, now you're bound to die. You met her on the hillside to make her your wife. You met her on the hillside, there you took her life. Well, you met her on the hillside where you begged to be excused. You met her on the hillside, hid her clothes and shoes. Hang your head, Tom Dula, hang your head and cry. Killed little Laura Foster, now you're bound to die.
You know, that's the thing about a short session like this. Maybe at Augusta Bluegrass or Vocal Week, wherever I end up at future Augustas. I think next year I'm back at Bluegrass. Maybe we can have like a DJ party where we share stuff like this, where we can just sort of nerd out. Because I think that's one of the things that I'm missing. I mean, I'm loving this. T-Claw, you're doing a great job, you know, playing DJ. But I'm missing being with all of my bluegrass fellow nerds. I hosted the Gray Fox Festival last weekend, the virtual festival, and when we brought on the Earls of Leicester, same deal. Here's guys who are at the top of the game, and all they want to do is nerd out to Flatt and Scruggs stuff. So I want to nerd out a little bit to go to the legend of John Henry. It's got that strong West Virginia tie, and it's one of those ballad forms that actually has crossed into so many different kinds of music. And somewhere there was probably a guy who was the strongest steel man in the tunnel, but it's taken on uh, the the legendary status of Paul Bunyan. It's taken on the legendary status of Pecos Bill. If we questions before we get any further on, or shall we just continue to nerd out? What do you think? All right, I'm seeing thumbs up. Not Monroe first, or we could do Monroe and play it and then show where it came from. That works too.
John Henry was a little colored boy. Hold him on the palm of your hand. And his papa cried out his own better well. Son gonna be used to you driving man, Lord, Lord. Son gonna be used to you driving man.
And so, you hear Bill use that old language. So let's go even further back. Sorry about that, but it's one of those things that it sort of slipped in there. But here's Gabriel Brown singing John Henry. This right there. Let's hear a little bit. He'll sing in just a sec.
John Henry had a little woman, just she was there. Went on down to the railroad station, going to man.
So there was a question that popped up about it that it jumped genres. "Sitting on Top of the World" is another good example of a song that's started out as a blues song that you can hear a great version of the Mississippi Sheiks, and then of course it certainly morphed into like one of the desert island bluegrass tunes. Wouldn't you agree, Ira?
Yeah, well, did it really jump genres, or is it just that the earliest version we hear is a blues version? Maybe it was really already present everywhere.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I remember Joe Thompson, the great one of the last African American fiddlers, and he sang "Careless Love," and he learned it actually from a white farmer up the road who would sit out all night curing tobacco, and Joe used to say, "Oh, I'd sit there and I'd listen at him." And he'd sing that song about the careless love. So a lot of these songs, you're right. I think maybe everybody was playing it, and we just happened to hear different genres. "Rolling in My Sweet Baby's Arms," Mike learned it from a blues man, and Mike, you were surprised to hear it in the bluegrass context. Wow.
I played on the show once with a lot of different groups, and one of them was this gospel quartet from a local church here in the Washington, D.C. area, black gospel quartet. I don't know, maybe it was a sextet, I don't know. But anyway, they did "Let the Church Roll On." And I told them that I knew that just from bluegrass, and they were amazed. They had no idea that, anybody but,
So cool.
black church people did it. But John Henry, that always makes me think of, this is something that I recognized on my own, and then I found out that it was kind of out there in the scholarly world. It's got a very close relationship to John Hardy. If you think about it, first of all, just the titles are, they're the same meter, almost the same. They both have a connection to West Virginia, and they both have the same structure. It's like a 4-line verse, which is pretty typical, but then you make some exclamation like "Lord, Lord," or "Poor boy," and then you repeat the last line. And, I recognized that on my own, and then I read a book about the John Henry legend that was published in the 1920s by some folklorist, and it said something like, as everybody knows, or as is well known, it is related to John, it's like,
Yeah.
Related to John Hardy. Do you know anything about that crossover? That really...
I really don't, although a lot of, I've been in plenty of sessions where somebody says, "Let's play John Hardy," and they start in on John Henry, and then you do this. Okay.
Yeah, and also they share, maybe not exactly verses, but types of verses, like John Henry had a little woman. You heard the version you just played of "The Dress She Wore with Red."
Sort of the braggadocio aspect. Here's a mythic figure. He was swung the greatest hammer in the tunnel, or he was a bad man, or wild wicked man. We have one more version, and it's actually my favorite version, and one of the reasons why I chose it. It's Mississippi John Hurt's "Spike Driver," which is a variation of John Henry. And the reason I've been on a John Hurt kick the last couple of weeks is that, the pandemic will strike people funny in different ways. I have had a really amazing dream life, and I had a dream, y'all, that I took a guitar lesson from John Hurt. It was unbelievably cool. Just, so I've gone back down into a John Hurt rabbit hole, which is, it's his playing and his singing was so gentle, but so compelling, And so if we could play a little bit of "Spike Driver," we'll move on, because our
Take this hammer and jack to my captain. Won't you tell him I'm gone? Tell him I'm gone. Tell him I'm gone. John Henry was a steel driving man, but he went down.
wow. So, as I said, I had a Dream Quest guitar lesson with him. There's so much in that, and the thing is that version of John Henry really brings it sort of back around to the fact that it's all about the story. That's pretty much all in G. He'll do a little bit of a 5-chord, but it's pretty much that alternating bass and all out of G, and that's where I see how important it is that he's just having a platform to tell this story. Our time is sort of grown short. I want to do a couple of I'll do one. I'll demonstrate one that because I as in the last 4 or 5 years, as I've done music all the time, I will take things that come across the threshold, including doing speaking engagements and keynotes and speeches. And somebody asked me to give the keynote at a conference called From Okra to Opry about Southern foodways and Southern music and Southern culture. And one of the questions that they asked me was, what is a ballad? You know, it's like what we've been talking about this last 45 minutes. What's a ballad? And I said, well, you know, it's a story, you know, set to music, and it's a narrative device to tell a story. And so see if you can tell this is an old song. See if you can tell where it's from. So let me see if I can. Sit back, you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip. It started from a seafaring port aboard one tiny ship. Aboard one tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailor man, the captain brave and sure. The passenger set sail that day on a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour. And that's enough of that Southern. So I spend way too much of my time driving around the country alone in a car, or I used to. So, but you know, really and truly, if you think about it, they call it the Ballad of Gilligan's Island, and that's exactly what it is. It hits all of the prerequisites for a ballad. I just sort of morphed it from, well, sit right back and you'll hear a tale. I just sort of brought it back to unaccompanied singing.
But that actually kind of fits in with the Kingston Trio, because that TV show came out in the early 60s.
Absolutely.
By then, the folk revival was a real presence on the popular music scene, and a lot of the folk revivalists were really into sea shanties. So obviously, whoever wrote that theme song was playing off of the fact that his audience had probably heard, if not the Kingston Trio, then maybe, you know, somebody else doing that kind of stuff.
I actually included play a little bit of it there.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from its tropic port aboard this tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailing man.
And so as you listen to that version of the Ballad of Gilligan's Island, they're referencing all sorts of folk tunes in it. If you go on a little further, there's a little bit of I think Devil's Dream in it. There's also a little bit of Sailor's Hornpipe in it. So yeah, somebody had done a fair amount of listening to the folk boom. I want to bring it up a little bit closer to present day, using the ballad form as a commentary on things that are happening all around us and making sense of our world. And in West Virginia, of course, there is really no more dangerous occupation than mining coal. And so Jean Ritchie, who grew up in Viper, Kentucky, in coal country, she wrote, 1968 was one of the worst years for coal disasters in our part of the world. And so she wrote the West Virginia mining disaster. And T. Claw, I'll say, if we play this, let's go ahead and play the whole thing, because I can't bear to not listen to it from A to Z.
Is that the West Plains explosion, or
No? That was my mother's hometown. No, this would be the West Virginia mining disaster. It's comes right after Arlo Guthrie. It's like fourth down.
I'm not seeing the link. Could you paste it into the chat?
Yes, I sure will. So, yeah, interesting about the West Virginia mining disaster. It's I just can't tell you how powerful Jean's version is. It's I mean, when she wrote it, it just knocked my head in the creek when I heard it the first time. and I love singing it with Val. Let's see. Well, there it is. Sorry, everybody. There it is. Almost there, T-Claw. That's the other thing that the pandemic has taught me is patience. Or maybe not. Hold on. Patience and acceptance of change. Thank you, Emily, for that. All right. There you go.
He going, it was early. Did you see him going? It was early this morning. He passed by these houses on his way to the cold. He was tall, he was slender, and his dark eyes so tender. His occupation was mining, West Virginia, his home. It was just before 12, I was feeding the children. Ben Mosley came running to bring us the news. Number 8 is all flooded, many men are in danger. And we don't know their number, but we fear they're all doomed. So I picked up the baby and I left all the others to comfort each other and pray for our own. There is Timmy, 14, and there's John, not much younger. Their own time soon will be coming to go down the black hole. Oh, if I had the money to do more than just feed them, I'd give them good learning, the best could be found. So when they grow up, they'd be checkers and weighers, and not spend their time drilling in the dark underground. Now what can I say to his poor little children? Or what can I tell his old mother at home? Or what can I say to my heart that's clear broken? To my heart that's clear broken if my darling is gone. Say, did you see him going so early this morning? He walked by your houses on his way to the coal. He was tall, he was slender, and his dark eyes so tender. His occupation was mining, West Virginia, his home.
I swear to goodness. Man. I have to sort of get myself together for a second. T. Claude, do we have any thing that anybody that we need to thank? Do we need to thank the National Endowment and the West Virginia Humanities Council and
Yes.
yes.
Sorry. I'm going to post the link. The West Virginia Humanities Council sponsored this session. So if you could all take a moment after it's over, use this link and fill out the Google Forms survey. Help support the grant funding and great programs like this. I posted the link. So there's
Fantastic.
that.
Great.
We got 4 more minutes. Let's
All right.
use them up.
All right. I keep my ear to the ground for great songs, and a great song has come out of the upheaval of the last couple of months. And there's a beautiful young singer. I think that if we could get him to Augusta in some future year, it would be amazing. His name is Kedron Bryant, and his mother wrote a song called "I Just Want to Live." And yeah, let's see, probably have to go right back to the front. But I see this as a direct line of the ballad tradition. Let's see, T-Claw, yeah.
I'm a young black man doing all that I can to stand. Oh, but when I look around and I see what's being done to my kind every day, I'm being hunted as prey. My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
I'll tell you what, that one knocks my hat in the creek. My goodness. Any last questions from anybody, or shall we just unmute and so I can hear your good voices? I'll tell you what, I want you to be careful out there. I want you to be safe, and I want to see you next year at Augusta in person.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Joe, for a wonderful session.
Absolutely enjoyed it so much.
And thanks to our sponsors, the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History, the West Virginia Humanities Council, National Endowment for the Arts, Davis and Elkins College, but most of all, you guys. Thanks for contributing to make this awesome thing happen. I'm going to let you all...
Oops.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having
Thank you,
me.
Joe.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful
Thanks,
session.
Joe. It was great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Y'all take care. Be safe. Wear those masks. I saw a great thing the other day. It's are you practicing safe 6?
Yeah.
And then the bottom of the sign said, masking for a friend.
Nice.
So y'all be careful out there, and we'll see you up on the hill next year. And Seth mentioned this yesterday. We're going to have the longest, most extended hug and party anywhere. Y'all take
And the best party. We're going to have the best party.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
So much
Take
dance.
care, y'all.
Everybody.
Bye-bye. You too.
Appreciate it.
So long.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Flora.
Bye, Flora.
Bye-bye.